Kevin Kelly, author of the new book, What Technology Wants. Kevin, what does Kevin Kelly want?
I want a world in which everybody has some chance to let their genius shine. And that's the reason why I think more technology is needed, because technology is the vehicle that we use to express our genius.
How have you expressed your genius in terms of technology? Your life has been very rich, very unusual. You're perhaps the most influential figure in terms of thinking through the implications of technology on society. You were around at the beginning of this thing, perhaps the most influential figure at Wired magazine.
Well, I wasn't always that way. I had a love-hate relationship with technology. I'm a college dropout. Instead of going to college, I went to Asia. I hung around the most remote parts of Asia where they had very little material possessions. I was actually very comfortable with that. I didn't even own a car or anything until I was 35 when I got my first real job. And I have an affinity kind of for the Amish, where they live with a very select amount of technology. So coming into the world of technology was for me a big awakening, and it happened online, where I began to see a different face of technology. It wasn't that kind of big brother, steam shovel, dirty industrial. Online there was something more organic, more Amish-like, of people meeting, and it seemed to be a more humane aspect of technology. And so being online began to change my mind about what technology was and what it could do.
When did this happen?
This was happening in the early 80s. I had an Apple IIe computer for my business about doing travel books, and I plugged it into the phone line. And when you plug the computer into the phone line, something magical happened. There was this other territory on the other side of the phone jack, this online world that was just beginning in the 1980s, early 1980. And I started to report on this emerging territory like it was a foreign country. I was a travel writer. And so I did a cover story for the magazine New Age Journal called Network Nation in 1984, where I was reporting on this amazing new continent that was happening. And I think living online since 1980 really has influenced me, because everything I've been saying about what was coming was based not on some kind of theory, but kind of on experience of seeing what happened when you were living and engaging in a social way in increased dimensions socially, and sharing. All these things were, to me, not just theories, but things that I had experienced and I felt confident talking about.
Were you a refugee from the real world?
I think the real world is includes the worlds we make online. They are as real as this table is real. There's nothing imaginary about online worlds. They are real. The emotions are real. The relationships are real. The money is real. It's all real.
But when you discovered online in the early 80s, and you said that you had this social experience, was this social experience replicated offline? Was it something that you couldn't find in the non-online world?
Well, I was involved in something called The Well, the startup of The Well, in 1985 or so, where some other kind of ex-hippies were involved in they wanted to make a public and as nearly free access to the internet as it was emerging. And of course, in 1985, the internet, you have to remember, was just basically people typing. There was no graphics, there was no hyperlinks. It was just text coming very, very fast. And the intent at that time was to try and make something that was going to be useful to other people. And I think that I forget what your question was, actually. What was your question?
My question was whether you have found something socially online which you weren't able to find in the real world.
Excuse me. So maybe I'll cut this short. I'll do this again. So when we were online, and I've been online since 1985 when we started to make The Well, which was this first public access to the internet. the thing that surprised us most about this emerging community online on the well was that the inhabitants, the citizens themselves, demanded face-to-face meetings from the very beginning. We had no intention or even idea of doing that. But the well said, we have to meet face-to-face. And so they had these monthly well parties where the people who were meeting online wanted to, and increased the ways that they were interacting by having face-to-face meetings. And so I think that was a really good indication that, in fact, onlineness does not actually sort of diminish the other ways that we interact socially, but actually wants to increase the ways that we interact socially. So I think that it wasn't filling a missing need, it was actually making a new need, in addition to the normal old needs that we had.